Hi everyone, it's Willow. Thanks for checking out my channel today. One of my favorite things about being on YouTube as a user is going on to other people's channels and hearing their stories. So I thought today I would tell you a little bit about my story and how I got to the point I am in my spiritual journey today. So my earliest recollection of a spiritual or metaphysical occurrence in my life would be probably when I was 3 or 4. I can remember going to my parents and saying, "There's a witch living in my room." And I remember my mom just looking at me like, huh? But I remember that my bed used to be like kind of catty-cornered, so there was a space between the headboard and the wall. And I swore there was a witch living there. I used to see this woman, and she used to appear every once in a while in that space. She wasn't threatening, but to a 3 or 4-year-old, I mean, let's be real. A 3-year-old, 4-year-old seeing somebody they don't know in their bedroom is kind of freaky. I mean, anybody, really, that would be freaky. So that was my first recollection. And actually, that was my first recollection, but my mom later told me that when I was a baby, she had seen spirits around my crib. So I don't know what that was about, but my first recollection was then. When I was 6 years old, I had a major brain trauma. And from that point on, I think my faith and spiritual journey really began. So I'm Italian Catholic, so, you know, I'm Roman Catholic, raised in the church, all that good stuff. So we always went to church on Sundays, the whole 9, you know, I'm sure many of you can relate. So through the process of me getting sick and going through many, many years of trials of medicines and procedures and all that fun stuff, my parents and I were told through the doctors, and, you know, my parents, without the doctors, decided to look into other options because Western medicine just wasn't working. So we started looking into, the doctors had told me, well, why don't you try meditating because you need to keep your body calm, your mind calm. So I think that was about when I was in 7th or 8th grade. So I started meditating. Then my mom and dad had found a Catholic priest who was going around and he was doing healing masses. So we started going to those. Then, sorry, I keep saying then, you know, YouTube Live in the videos. I'm still stumbling. Anyway, so after we started going to the healing masses, we heard about Dr. Oz at Columbia University. That was the hospital that I was going to. And he had just started doing Reiki in the hospital. And that was a big thing. That was like early 90s, I believe. It might have been late 80s, but I believe it was the early 90s. So Reiki was really new. We had just started hearing about Reiki. So I think we started hearing about that. I was still meditating. We were going to the healing masses, so we knew that Reiki was kind of similar to healing. Well, my condition wasn't improving, and in high school, I had to go on home tutoring. So I was at home, and I really didn't have any quality of life. So my father decided, enough is enough. I can't watch this anymore. So he went out to find some other way to help me. So he found a local woman that he was going to take me for Reiki treatments. So he comes home one day, and I remember this, I was like 16 or 17, and he said, "I'm going to take you for Reiki." Now, At that point, Reiki was nowhere near as popular as it is now. I mean, I joke around with my friends now and I say, guys, when I was first introduced to Reiki, like that was like you were saying, you know, that was almost like, it was crazy. It was not mainstream at all. Like you were going to a witch. I mean, it was not mainstream at all. So my father says, I'm going to take you for Reiki. So I said, okay. So I remember driving there, and I remember we pulled up to the house, and sitting outside the house, I remember saying to my father, I was an obnoxious 16, 17-year-old. I remember saying to my father, I cannot believe you're taking me to a witch. What is wrong with you? Like, I was like, you've lost it, Dad. Like, I get you're trying everything, but you've lost it. So went in for my first Reiki session, and it helped tremendously. I mean, that was my introduction to Reiki in 1995, I believe. I was introduced to Reiki. I think it was 1995. I had a few sessions with this woman who I love. You know who you are. And she helped me tremendously. And I'm telling you, by the time I walked out the first day, my complete opinion of Reiki and everything had changed. I had had no relief up to that point. So my journey went from meditating to now having firsthand experience with healing. And as soon as the Reiki helped me, I started on the journey to getting initiated into Reiki 1 and 2, which was, I got my Reiki 1 and 2 in 1996. So that's a long time ago now. So I got my Reiki then. I was, like I said, meditating, doing all that stuff. I didn't take it past meditating at that point. And the Reiki. Probably about a year later, I started getting a little interested. I would read things on spells and witchcraft, and I started getting a little interested, like a lot of teenagers do. I won't say most. So I started getting a little interested in that. I would read different things and I would dabble. You know, I had my first altar set up in my room in I actually found a picture of it the other day. It was like 1997 or 98. So I had started back then with simple altars, had all the elements without even realizing it. As I looked at the pictures, all the elements were represented. But around this same time, I started to have weird experiences and I believe it was through the meditation. I went to bed one night and I woke up and I looked over the corner of my room and I saw a girl in a white t-shirt and jeans. And she was like, she wasn't there physically. I knew she wasn't there physically. She was kind of translucent, so I knew she wasn't like a person in my room. She was a spirit. And she looked at me, and I had no idea who she was, but I wasn't afraid. Like, I knew it was okay. And she looked at me and she said, please tell my parents I'm okay. And before I could get anything out of my mouth to question her, she was gone in a split. Before I could say a word, she was gone. So I had no idea. I think I was about 18 at this point. I had no idea who she was. Not a clue. I just put it in the back of my head. I was like, okay, this was a weird one. I'm going to let it go. You know, I'll figure it out. About 3 days later, I had plans to go babysit for people my parents knew, for their granddaughter. So I was babysitting her. And I went downstairs in the basement after I put her to sleep. And I go into the basement. And I go to turn the TV on. And I look over at the entertainment center where all the pictures are. And there's the girl. So at this time, there weren't camera phones or anything. So right away, I called my mom. And I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, who is this? Because this girl was in my room and blah, 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 blah. My mother's like, what? What do you mean this girl was in your room? Wait, hold on. You know, like my mom's like, what are you talking about? Because I hadn't said a word. So my mom was like, well, that's so-and-so. That's their daughter. She was murdered. So it turns out that I started to see spirits. They started coming to me when I was about 18. And this went on for about 5 years. I did tell the parents that I saw their daughter who was murdered, which was kind of awkward for an 18-year-old. I was very nervous, and I was like, you know, Kelly, I'll use that name, kind of came to me, and she wants you to know she's okay. And I mean, I thought they were going to think I was crazy, but they were like, oh, they were very accepting of it, which was awesome. And they were just very happy to receive that information. So that was like a confirmation to me that it was okay to be doing this, and that, you know, I wasn't nuts, and that it was okay. So probably over the next 6 or 7 years, this would happen occasionally. Spirits would just come to me, and it would always be as quick as that. They would come. I could never really question them because they would give me the information and be gone as quick as that. At one point, I did have a chat room on Pal Talk, which was I don't know if any of you remember that. It was like a chat system, but you could have headphones and you could actually speak. Like have headphones and a mic. One point I did have a chat room on there where I did psychic readings for about a year and a half in my early 20s. Then I started getting really sick, and I shut myself down, closed off the psychic abilities, because things started to come in that I didn't want to see, and I couldn't protect myself from because my body was too broken down and my aura was it had too many holes in it. Like, I just couldn't keep them out. So I blocked everything out. I was still doing the Reiki, but I blocked all other abilities out. And I did that probably for about 7 years, which I regret now. I wish I would have sought a teacher who could teach me how to protect myself from that instead of blocking it completely. But I was going through a lot physically then, and I just couldn't have that wear on me as well. So in my early 30s, I guess, I started trying to bring it back a little bit, but got married, got separated, had a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, that brings me to where I am now. In about the last year or so, year and a half, I've really felt a calling. It's gone beyond the, you know, I think I mentioned that I used to read spells every once in a while and try them out, but I really didn't know why I was doing the things I was doing, and it wasn't anything intense. Like, I would do a love spell, and I would put the rose petals in, you know, put the oil in, write the little petition, and burn the petition and do the whole thing. But I never thought about the elements. Why was I using fire? Why was I using, if I was using water in a spell, why was I using water? I never thought about what I was doing beyond what I was doing and seeking the immediate results. So, also made poppets, things like that. The poppet worked. I only did that once, and it did work. But I gotta say, because I didn't know what I was doing, it came back to bite me in the butt in the end. So be careful if you're doing things that, you know, you don't exactly know what you're doing. So that was in about like the last year and a half though. And I'll tell you, I'm in my early 40s now. So this is a long progression for me on the spiritual journey. And I feel like I'm finally in my early 40s, finally at a point where I know where this is going and where I've been preparing to go. in the last year, I've been called, I started by reading about the Wiccan religion. Read books by Scott Cunningham. Read a lot of the Wiccan Bible, which I forgot who wrote that, but read a lot of the basic books that they tell you to read when you're first starting out to explore that. Realized that Wicca is probably not for me. Not quite sure yet, but it's probably not. Then I started looking into the pagan holidays, you know, things like that. I'm still doing my research. I still haven't completely decided. It's taking me a while because I really, really want to research and figure out where I fall into things. But I also am not going to push to label myself, you know, what I am. So right now, I would say on my spiritual journey, I've been researching and watching YouTube channels and reading and going to a few pagan events and just exploring different aspects of magic, of witchcraft, different aspects of Wicca when they have public events, and in, you know, online groups, and just really immersing myself in it and trying to figure out where I fit in, or what, you know, do I fit into this or not? And I'm sure it's going to be a long journey, and so I'm enjoying the journey. Right now, if you were to ask me, what am I? I don't like labels. I really don't. I would say that, I think I put it in my YouTube bio too. I would think I would have to say that I'm an eclectic witch. And the term witch has so many bad connotations that I hesitate to use that term. But I think I would have to say that at this point in the journey, that's what I believe I am. And I'll probably stay on that path. Also, in August, I was drawn to get this tattoo. I started really drawing this symbol, Triquetra. I started really drawing it and feeling a connection to it and the need to get it on my wrist last May as I was reading and going through the process of researching. And I didn't want to run out and get the tattoo right away because I didn't want to jump the gun, and I thought maybe I'm not really into this. Maybe it's just, you know, something that I'm looking into, and I'm gonna decide this isn't for me. So I let it go, let a few months pass, and it just kept coming to my head. So in August I started pricing it, and then I think in October I finally went and got my Triquetra tattoo, which to me, if you look at it, it looks like a Celtic knot, and I'm sure plenty of people think it's a Celtic knot, Celtic knot, but it has different meaning to me. That's not what it means to me. To me, it is protection that is tattooed on my arm. It is the symbol of divine femininity, and it represents the moon goddesses. So, you know, my journey has taken an interesting turn from when I was a kid. A lot of our journeys have gone ways that we probably didn't think they would. Anyway, I just wanted to come on and let you know who I was, give you a little information. I'm sure there's a lot more that I haven't told you, but, you know, I'll just keep that to myself for now. But anyway, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to know when I do other videos, subscribe. And if you want to be notified, hit that little ding, the little bell. Also, if you're interested, on Tuesdays, I do free tarot readings in my Facebook group, which is private. The link is below. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening if you stuck around this long. And I will come back on Sunday for Tarot of the Week cards. Have a great day. Bye-bye.